Welcome, everybody. I will explain this at the end of my presentation. You have to think what it is about and how it is related to the talk I prepared. So, I have a kind of a strange feeling because when Jaka mentioned to me that he's planning to organize every seminar, we have been somehow pretty much into something that was called violence. We did have an example of Facebook beating up one guy who died, and it was pushed live on screens, and it happened for the first time in Slovenia, and everybody was in shock. So my idea is to say something about violence and the way how we cope with violence itself. And of course I'm working on music, so the relationship between art and music was quite obvious to choose. However, I missed the second part of the announcement of this. So it will be a kind of another experiment I do recently in these segments. So, who sings is supposedly provoke no harm. There is a saying in Serbian, ko peva taj zlo ne misli. Well, or former anthem of the socialist, Yugoslav socialist. Sorry, this is not it. Well, I was trying to make these links late last evening, but here it is, an English version of the socialist Yugoslav anthem. I will stop here. I never understood those lines in Slovenian version of the anthem. I still don't, because it is a mess. In Croatian and Serbian version it is clear. And you have this translation. So you can see the abyss of hell, the rain of fire, of thunder. This is for enemies. And it should be so. So this was national anthem. The other which obviously I made a twist with is a partisan song. Oh no! Well, this is the Slovenian version. No, it's the original So, krog in peklo prazne vaše, proti nam se steka. If anybody understands it, okay, I'm just fine with this. But in any case, it is hell and fire. It's an essential part of it. Now, a partisan song. Hey, the gun, you will sing and everybody will die from our attack. And this is the leading part of Slovenian politics. Maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I will do the same slide as I did last year. So, it's very difficult to say no harm. You will agree with this. Plato warned about this paradox we have. We have a restrained, patient, rational being, a human being, who actually uses violence, passion, and lies in his quest for power. Now, when we are talking about power and music, metal is an obvious choice, isn't it? So let's see how it looks like. Being a metal. You know it is quite exciting, peaceful aggression. It may hurt, but it's still an aggression. So power is always related to use of violence. You can't have power without use of violence. This is the point. We know that topology as well. So violence is physical. However, it may appear or show itself in symbolic form. The resistance to violence, however, especially in structured way, in state apparatuses, when the violence appears from state apparatuses, is much stronger when it becomes more symbolic than physical. So symbolic forms and artistic expressions are not only powerful but literally unbeatable. And in this relationship between power and violence, we need art. But how? Which way? Johnson and Kluner, who co-wrote actually the first monograph on popular music and violence, would define this relationship between sonic and visual information, economies of sonic and visual information, as a key to the often violent power relations out of which the modernity itself emerged. So these violent power relations, which were used sonically and visually, is essential for modernization. So let us see how we can cope with this violence in the everyday life. I will now use invisible violence, a concept propagated by Philippe Bourgeois, in defining symbolic, structural, and normalized violence. Philippe Bourgeois would write it down in many different articles and monographs. I will not go now into details, but what is important is that we have a kind of three ways of handling this everyday violence. In symbolic sense, it is about domination, hierarchies, and so on, which sooner or later becomes naturalized. Symbolic violence is something that we can say Gramsci's theory would cope with quite effectively. Structural violence is, of course, this violence which is led by political, economical elites, by international treaties of free trade and organizations and states and so on and so forth, while normalized violence is actually something we simply do in our everyday life. And my question would be, is an art an essential ingredient in normalized violence? Now, going again back to music, let us try to see how this normalization might work out. Does art normalize violence? In rituals and ecstatic practices, it is more or less clear. Affective term and in something which derives from, as far as I understand, the Kenyan tradition, effervescence, it does clearly. However, in movements, when people are tuning together, these effects get enormous power. So I will show you football fans. And, this is basketball in this. Welcome to Croatian team, saying you are Catholics, we are Orthodox, and we will show you who is strong or something like that. I didn't catch all words. This now is their song, and after that you will hear mine. That means our team will win. So another example from the same group of supporters. I think this one will be from football match. So it is the whole song is Ale 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 Oh. We will kill all shifters, that means Albanians from Kosovo. This is what it is. So, saying again that singing does no harm is extremely difficult. But the point is we have here something clearly expressed as social mobilization, and this is another issue. How much time do I have? More than 5 minutes?
Yeah, 7.
So in the 90s, during the Yugoslav war, there was this song invented at the basis of the old Chetnik song from the Second World War, which is pretty nasty, I have to say. Although we can understand killing as beating, at least in some dialects, both in Slovenian and Serbian language, killing is literally used to beat somebody. And to beat somebody means to win the competition. So maybe we should not read this too literally. But nevertheless, this one is even worse. This is again Čolović writing from the 90s. So we will go to Zagreb and kill everybody who is not with us. This was reality in this country not too long ago. In a symbolic way it still is. So, if we are trying to understand what are the limits of expression, of freedom in expression, we have to define where hate speech and where the calls to violence starts. And it is almost impossible. So, the problem is where to find the way to define or to understand fascism. And one of the best approaches I know to understand fascism is by Walter Benjamin, who wrote actually about art. And in his famous, of course, work on the art in the times of infinite reproduction, he wrote this, and I will quote these couple of sentences on. From a photographic negative, for example, one can make any number of prints, thus for the authentic print makes no sense. But the instant the criterion of authenticity ceases to be applicable to artistic production, the total function of art is reversed. Instead of being based on ritual, it begins to be based on another practice, that means politics. And when it becomes parts of politics, you can't prevent art becoming fascist, or communist, or liberal. So when art becomes fascist, he would continue in another footnote. His fascism attempts to organize the newly created proletarian masses without affecting the property structure which the masses try to eliminate. Fascism sees its salvation in giving these masses not a right, but instead a chance to express themselves. as if you would read the situation in America nowadays. The masses have a right to change property relations. Fascism seeks to give them an expression while preserving property. The logical result of fascism is the introduction of aesthetics into political life. Kitsch aesthetics in many ways, of course. The violation of the masses from fascism with its Führer cult forces to their knees has its counterpart in the violation of an apparatus which is pressed into the production of ritual values. So, oops, whatever we do, we are part of the problem, not the solution. But you can't, the point of Benjamin's analysis is you can't understand fascism without understanding of arts, not vice versa. And unfortunately, it still stands. So, in former Yugoslavia, we have at least a couple of local after-fascisms or post-fascisms or any kind of you would like. I could find only Croatian, Serbian, and Kosovan variant of it. I was trying to find the Slovenian version, but I failed, I have to admit. So we had a guy named Thompson, who is literally a child of war, as an artist. Zadom, spremni. So I will just stop here, because this is the main problem in his work. You can see this gun, I suppose, is Thompson, a marker, a kind of gun. This video was shot in late 1991, maybe early 1992, but I think it was late 1991. And he was a defender of his village. It was Čavoglava, very close to Knin, which was then somehow headquarters of the so-called Srpska Krajina, Serbian Krajina. And he was a defender of his own home. And this was the answer. He became involved, of course, in the troops, defending his village. But you can see the cross, and you can have a feeling of what it is about. When he went further, this is what we have now.
Oko 100.000 ljudi okupilo se u srijedu 5. kolovoza na gradskom stadionu Venka Dinara u Kninu na veličanstvenom koncertu.
So, this was a couple of years ago, I think 2 years ago, maybe 3, at a celebration of the final offensive against the Krajina. 100,000 people attended the concert. And I will just show you with the beginning of this is when he's dressing shirt. So he didn't say Zadom spremni, Zadom spreči, or something similar. And he is now somehow saying this is not a Nazi or fascist way of doing it. I will show you just another Serbian one from Krajina, very close. He was born very close. This one is Bala Pježa. And the third one, and I will have to stop here, unfortunately. And I have one more to show. Is Bel Agye from so now. behind this. This is a concept album by the group Strelnikov, which was something that was prosecuted in Slovenia because of violence, because of people who were doing this were violent guys. Fortunately, after 4 years of prosecution, the guys were not found guilty, but I was involved pretty much in defending them. So if I defended them, I have to defend the right of freedom of speech. And I had no choice.
The difference was in the court or in the academic way?
No, in the court.
In the court.
Yes.
Like an advisor.
So people who are Christians in Slovenia were pretty much offended by this picture. But what was strange was they were not offended because Jesus was shot as a rat. They were offended because Mary held the rat. This was the problem. Because Mary is queen.
You showed Trace the Money at the beginning. I was wondering why anthems are so violent. French anthem is also extremely violent. But on the other hand, it doesn't have the, at least now it doesn't have the effect like Thompson does or others. Why?
Well, Thompson doesn't have any effect. Okay. In comparison to politicians, he is completely harmless.
So
I mean, this is the main point. But
Yes.
you-
Slovenian anthem is
Yeah.
quite nice. We like to drink with our neighbors, so I think that's a good starting point.
Somehow, if pick up the important things, and also with the Strelnikov poster for the concert, which I love a lot, because really. But also the symbolic, iconic, the very conscious use of clothes with the music. You know, it's sort of like a. That's also, I think, the huge power of the performance arts and particularly music. This can combine. It's a multimedia event in any case, and a multisensory one, and it's visual and it's physical, depending on where the bass is going or other things. And you can combine it with any other kind of extreme, like the mosh pit, in a way. It's a soft extreme, as you pointed out. But so, do you think that this is why it's a popular thing? So many people, 100,000 people at this guy's concert is a lot. I mean, is the popularity linked to this multimedia art event, any concert, any performing musicians, or the use of music by politicians and parties? Or is this a mistake of not evaluating the music alone properly from my part?
My point is, I always play Thompson to my students in anthropology of popular music, because they're in deep shock when I explain them the context. If they don't know the context, they can like the music. And this is the main point. Music itself is completely, it may be used as a form of oppression or as a form of resistance. Both. The same music. Not different kinds of music. So it is completely pointless to prevent music to be played, because it is much better to play music than to march with arms. So this is completely ridiculous. However, in society we have to know where is the limit, and this limit should be written down politically, not aesthetically. So if I said before, aesthetics is the only way to understand fascism, to prevent fascism is not enough to prevent fascist art. and you have to recognize it. And this is the most difficult part. You have cults now. Who is, in my opinion, fascist.
Yeah.
And the third cults in Slovenia has another meaning. It's a dick.
Could you say something more about the reaction? Because there is other side which is really against this kind of artist in the way. So maybe you can just say a little bit about this criticism of fascism and Thompson and stuff like that, because you mentioned a little bit about mass observation for the audience to have also the other side of the coin.
So my problem is I have to think about it and I don't have a clear opinion on this. And I still don't know how to express it. I will try to put it on political level as far as possible, because music itself and aesthetics itself is pretty much a useless path to find, let's say, the limits. However, if you're asking specifically my opinion about the band of the concert, because I have to explain to our colleagues that the concert of this Thompson was for the first time announced to happen tomorrow in Maribor. And it was banned 3 days ago by the police, saying that there are security threats in this kind of concert. My point before the ban was that we have to separate music concert from the event, which is kind of half political and half social event. And if on this event people will sing along Zadom's ending and so on, if they will show any kind of fascist insignia, I think they should be charged. But we have an even more problematic situation at the moment in Slovenia. We have a guy who denied Holocaust in public, and he is still not being prosecuted. So my point is, if he will not be prosecuted, we live in a fascist state. So what people do, this is what matters. What people think or are aiming to do matters as well, but it is very difficult to define the intentions of individuals. But symbols themselves, not only music, the symbols that they use to suppress use of symbols is completely meaningless. People will always find a way to express their hate. Unfortunately, you have to find the line at which you would prevent the harm to society. Holocaust is one such line, and I guess fascism is another one. But again, it's very difficult to define fascism, if it is impossible, if it is possible.
Question. No, just to know, in Slovenia, is there a law against those who deny the Holocaust?
Yes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be the members of the European Union. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
But you have such fascists all around Europe. Sure.
Thank you.